Hey, good evening. Well, I'm just looking at some of the stuff that am now being suggested to me on my phone. I do everything on my phone. I'm on my phone now, the phone camera, and I now get another page. Just bearing in mind that I'm tech challenged. Everything to do with computers, my wife Beth does, okay? So don't expect me to be all that computer savvy when I'm describing things. But I see now that there's a subjects page which is suggesting things that I might be interested in looking at. And one of the things that they are suggesting I look at, one of the subjects is transgender. As if I would be interested in going on and looking at transgender. I really wouldn't. And then the other one is they have a phrase for it, which for the life of me I can't remember. But it is for those families who choose to bring up their children neither male nor female. They're non-bi something or other. Not quite sure what their particular way of describing it would be, but somehow they manage it. And when on the interviews that I've actually taken a quick look at, was where the person that's describing it doesn't actually has succeeded in being neither male nor female. That's not an easy task, given our biology and genetics. So anyway, I'm just looking. We need to really be paying attention, because if we're not paying attention, all kinds of stuff is happening. Now, I must admit I've got my doubts now. I had thought that Mr. Musk, Elon, was going to be some kind of a knight in shining armor, and he was going to come and perhaps he was going to be the one that would promise to save us all. But he did do a big thing by resealing. Let me see. He gave away the stuff on Twitter, didn't he? And he released all of these emails that were to do with some of the stuff that goes on, where people who were once part of government bodies can go over into the lobbying for big companies and earn a great living at our cost. Because when they want to have something taken down, they can get in touch with the powers that be, and they can have certain stuff deleted. So that's one of the words that now has come into play and is a big part of our lives, whether we like it or not, is the delete situation. But I'm just looking. Before I came on, I made a little list of some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. We've got look at some of the things, which is it's easy to put it into a word like transgender and what it means for our future, for our children. Now, if I read out the list and then we'll try to put them, I'll try to put them into some kind of order for myself. This is a meandering session. I'm really talking to myself. Of course I am. It's around midnight, and I have all the lights on in our little made-up kitchen, and I'm talking to myself. But I'm hoping that somebody is watching and listening. Look at this list. Transgender, transhumanism. Now, then we get into transplants. Now, about 2 or 3 years ago, I did a video, or let me complete that thing. Face transplant, head transplant, TED Talk, a lady with a bionic arm that came on and did a TED Talk that was very interesting to me. She said it felt like it actually felt like a real arm. Obviously they'd taken her arm from about here. She had a hinge, an elbow, and everything worked perfectly. She did all of this, and the other thing that she could freak people out by turning the arm completely 360. But the interesting thing was, this was long before the transhumanism became a common word, but it's common now. So you got a head, believe it or not. This is possibly 3 or maybe 4 years ago now, that a surgeon was confident that he could do a head transplant, and they had this person who was pretty well paralyzed from the neck down, and he was willing to try. I guess quality of life was such that he was willing to try to get a healthy body and have his head. I know that it sounds like a horror story and like I'm inventing it, but if you go onto YouTube and type in head transplant, I'm sure that you will get it. And this man, a young man, as I say, was paralyzed from the neck down, from about here, and they were going to take it off from here, and they were going to put it onto a healthy body that had been donated by the family of the person who had obviously suffered great head injuries, and they'd have the body intact, and they were going to do the job. The surgeon remained completely confident that he could do it. Had obviously started to set everything up so that they would have a success, but the patient decided against it in the end. So that didn't happen. Now, when I talked about this and about how I felt that the whole prosthetics, science of prosthetics, which was such an incredible thing for those people who had suffered these losses and could have a limb or something like that transplanted, it would be a wonderful thing for them. But it has its downside. It's like it's like a dollar coin. You put it on one side, it's heads, you put it on the other and it's tails. Same coin, and all that separates it is this very, very thin thing. What else have I got? So the woman with the bionic arm, which I'll talk about later, the WEF, the World Economic Forum. If you're not aware of what is going on with this thing in Davao, you really should be, because the kind of life future that they are planning for us is not something that it's not going to be a walk in the park, believe me. So 15-minute cities. I didn't even write that down, but 15-minute cities. Censorship. Censorship is the key to what is happening at the moment, because most of us don't know what the hell is going on, because we're not allowed to talk about certain things. And to illustrate that so very well, Facebook, our unelected leaders, have actually banned the Trump video. He's done a Trump which shows America and shows various wonderful shots of America. I actually shared it. It's not a question of whether you're for Trump or not for him, but the thing is that he is not allowed to put this video on, which is just showing what America is. And I found that, if you could separate the idea that it's about getting himself elected, and just look at it as a video about America, it was an incredible video. So we've got that. Now let me see what else. So in deciding what we are allowed to see, what we are allowed to hear in terms of words, we are being programmed. Now, a lot of people tell me, well, I'm not programmed. I'm completely opposed to that, and I'm a free thinker, and I'm not in any way programmed. We are programmed, whether we like it or not. If you want to know that you are a very oversimplified example of programming, which is completely instilled in us now, and which we don't even think about. When you go to the next building that has an elevator and go and stand in front of probably 3 elevators, and of course, if you're like me, I'm very impatient, you go and you press every button on every elevator, wherever they are, in the hope that they'll come very soon. So you stand there, lost in your reverie, if you're anything like me, and you wait for your elevator, which is going to be the quickest one to take you whichever floor that you want, and it's going to arrive. And what does it do when it arrives? You don't know which one of this one, or this one, and you don't know which one is which. But lost in thought as you may be, once the one that is going to take you to wherever you want to go on the floors, it goes ding. And when it goes ding, you immediately go without thinking. It doesn't take any decision. You don't say, oh gosh, there goes the bell, I'd better go over to elevator number 1. You don't do that. You immediately go to elevator number 1, and it's a completely programmed response. So all of these things are being programmed, and all of these words now, in other words, something which I have absolutely no interest in, which I am opposed to, which is the transgender movement. I've watched in horror some of the videos that I've seen, the clips that people put up about various people that are in some position of some power, some control over our children. And children are being opened, in my view, they're being groomed. They're being open to the idea that, well, Sonny, maybe you're not supposed to be a little boy, and we can take that little thing off there, and we can make you into a little girl. And this is actually being done, and all of us are capable of shutting out what is abhorrent to us, right? So you can say, no, this is not happening, but it is happening, and censorship is the key. Censorship and all of these media that we have up to now. I mean, there used to be some of our vocabulary used to contain things like responsible reporting, reporting the truth, facts as they are, what, when, which, how, all of those basic things which we relied on, whether something was a good paper or not a good paper. And then it started to creep in, didn't it, where a newspaper owned, but obviously they're all owned by someone, and they all make money for someone, and if that someone didn't like a particular party for their politics, they could try to influence the way that media was actually put up to us, the way that it was presented, the way the front page would make a terrible mistake on the front page and then do a retraction, and they'd put it at the bottom of page 3 or somewhere when they apologise for it. So the big thing of, hey, look what happened here, everybody should know about this, and then they find out they made a mistake, they go and put a little thing, a little box on the bottom of page 3, and they were criticised heavily for doing that. But now they will not even report in a particular way about a subject which is of interest to us, about things which are happening. Things like the transgender movement, the transhuman. Well, we know what the transgender movement is about. Didn't a young woman, a performer, Elaine Page, I think it was, she decided that she was no longer a lady, and so what did she do? She's looking at herself in the mirror and said, well, I've got to get rid of these things for one thing, and they were happy to do that. And then she posted a picture of her boyish figure with a scar across where her breasts used to be. Heaven knows what they did down below, but they certainly handled her chest. Now, we've got that being thrust in our face. Now, it's okay, you see. The media will broadcast that. It's okay. Because it's part of the transgender movement. And we're not supposed to be prejudiced against that. Now, if you don't agree with that, it's not just like not agreeing with something. Like in my own country, the UK, it used to be very popular to be either a United fan or a City fan, but you weren't hated for doing either one. If you were City, I used to live close to the Manchester City grounds on a Saturday, games which I had no interest in, but I could hear the crowd roaring when anything got close to a goal. So I was aware of it. It was okay by me, and I could have somebody talk about it. Hey, what do you think about City this week? I don't think anything about it, but it was okay. But now we're not allowed to publish things which are against these things because we are being censored. And in censoring us, they don't take something away without replacing it with something. So transgender. So the fact that we are against children doing this or that or the other, it didn't suggest that I would look at anything that opposed transgender. It didn't do anything like that. It simply said, oh, well, transgender, you might want to look at this. Now, transhumanism was not on there, but about 3 years ago, I made a video and posted it. This is before censorship was quite as heavily in. Maybe 4 years ago would take us to that point, because as soon as we had this vaccination and being quarantined and all of that, as soon as that came in, of course, you're not allowed to say that. We've only just been recently been able to actually print the word COVID and put it into any kind of post. Otherwise, you might get banned. I'm still talking in horror about the fact that Facebook said that it was fake to say the phrase Jesus lives. Somebody actually made a comment about this later and said, I just tried to post a belief that I have that Jesus lives, which for me it does. For me it does. Apparently artificial intelligence was not able to grasp the idea that there is a spiritual meaning to being alive. But that's what happened. Once again, it is about censoring. So what else? Well, the transhumanism is taking on a new thing now. As I said, you probably would not believe that they have done a successful face transplant. Do you remember that they made a movie? Some of these things have been dealt with in movies for the longest time. I often think that this has been a long time view of Hollywood to make these things into an everyday subject, household words. So transhumanism is about making humans more than human, and the WEF, they are actually dealing in their talks at their meetings about one particular little guy that I always thought looked a little bit like Mr. Eichmann, but he is talking about how at one time, when it was a rural situation, when we needed cows and stuff like that, we needed things to be grown. We hadn't realized then, I guess, that it was easy for us to eat crickets and bugs instead of having a T-bone steak. Yes, I can't wait to do that. Well, he is saying that then, at that time, when cows and there were crops in the field and wheat and all of this kind of stuff, which was producing our food, it needed a lot of people. Like right now in the Philippines, it needs a lot of people to go in and make the rice harvest. It takes people. Here, because we are just, Bohol is just a small island in the Philippines. So it's the province. It takes people to do everything. Well, he's making the point now that we don't need people as much. It's an organic thing that we really don't need. And the people that we have, we can make them so superior because now we can put chips into people which will give a greater programming, which will take from artificial intelligence and which will make people so much better. We can be better. We won't, I heard him say this myself, we won't rely on some imaginary guy in the sky. Yes. Now this all fits in with a TED talk that I heard when Uncle Billy, I'm sure you know who I mean, Uncle Billy was talking about the fact that now, instead of allowing a suicide bomber to do their thing, we could go in, we being him, not me, we could go in to the brain and we could just tweak that little bit out of existence so that the person cannot go to that area which deals with the Spirit, with the Lord, with God. So he would have no reason to be a suicide bomber because he hasn't got 27 virgins or whatever waiting for him in some kind of heaven. So back then they were already talking about it. Transhumanism. The transplanting of a face onto somebody else. All of this is all the good side of it, but like I say, on the other side of that coin, you have the alteration of the human makeup. What makes us human. That's why the mRNA jabs they're promising that they can change the DNA. For myself, I don't want them fiddling about with my DNA because so far they haven't been able to work out the 80 or 90 or 98% of our DNA, which is not actually active at the moment, is just junk. The arrogance of a statement like that would be beyond belief. That if you have something which is a system within the body and 90 or 95 or 98% of that system is for some reason unbeknownst to certainly the scientists deactivated. Well, if you are a reader of the Bible, you will be perhaps referring to the fall of man. These things are there to be learned, but they cannot be learned with only a three-dimensional mindset. Now, all of the censorship will stop us from looking at the other side. Now, when I talked about being concerned about artificial intelligence, that they actually had, you can look this up for yourself, but they actually had two little robots with artificial intelligence each, and they argued too much that they finally deactivated them. There's a lot going on, and we need to be paying attention. So really the theme of this little talk, this little meander, my little vent, is that we should be looking at other sources of information, because it's been proved by evidence which is incontrovertible that we are being lied to. So you need to be paying attention. There's a lot of stuff going down and it's not good. Bye for now.